Samuel Clark and his young family are trying to make the most of life in isolation.
Oh!
But they've had to rein in their spending, with income from his online media business slumping by 60% due to the pandemic.
Big kick! Big kick! Good job!
Daddy!
That's just down to the necessities in terms of the things we can't not pay, which is keeping up our rent and putting food on the table.
Samuel hopes he will be eligible for the government's $1,500 a fortnight JobKeeper payment. But in the meantime, to stay financially afloat, he's applied to withdraw the maximum $10,000 he's now allowed to take from his super fund.
I've got business overheads that aren't going to be covered by JobKeeper. Our rent hasn't been reduced, so that's still at $2,000 a month.
He's one of more than 900,000 Australians who have been granted early access to their superannuation. That represents the release of more than $7 billion, but much more is expected.
Initial estimates were about $27 billion, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's only about 1% of the whole system.
Financial analysts at Chant West estimate a 30-year-old withdrawing $10,000 now will have $25,000 less when they retire. This equates to a $1,400 a year drop in retirement income.
My concern is if you create a precedent that people are allowed to access superannuation during crises, you are, having set a very high bar to do it the first time, the bar's going to come down and down and down over time.
Venture capitalist Mark Carnegie argues super funds will now be more likely to invest in assets that can be sold quickly to release money in a future crisis.
If you are thinking about money that you received from your great aunt when she died to invest on behalf of your children, you're likely to put it in long-term unlisted or growth assets to earn the highest possible return. If, in contrast, you also need it to be able to pay for their Christmas present, you will keep a big chunk of it in cash or bonds, readily liquid things, in order to pay for the Christmas presents. You should be putting as much as you can into long-term assets on behalf of those kids.
Everything that the government has done around the COVID-19 response has been proportionate, it's been targeted, and it's been temporary. But financial hardship release of superannuation has always been around. All that's happened now is that we have changed the criteria under which financial hardship arrangements can be made.
Samuel Clark would prefer not to draw down his super, but he needs the money now.
It's not something I think anyone would be wise to undertake lightly. This is money that should be saved for retirement, but we're in exceptional circumstances. This is not your average sort of I can't afford to pay my bills situation.
Michaela Menhatova has also applied for early access to her super nest egg. Her hours as a casual English teacher have been slashed due to the pandemic.
In one day, I don't have to go to work anymore. I'm in a share house. I don't have a job. I can't pay rent. I've moved back to my parents' home where I haven't lived for at least 10 years, so that's a big shock to my lifestyle.
She's hoping the money will make it possible for her to study for a more secure career.
Really, I've been thinking about a career change, and when I heard about being able to take out your super, I thought that this would be a good way to start my career change, go back to university and use this super to pay for my studies.
We're at a time of crisis and we've got so many people who've lost their jobs. I would argue it's more important to be able to pay your bills, put food on the table and not have to go into massive credit card debt. It's better to not have to do that and to draw down some of your super.
The COVID-19 crisis hasn't just sparked an early run on superannuation. It's also driven down the price of assets such as shares, which have fallen across the globe. With businesses closed and the outlook uncertain, share market investors have bet that companies won't be able to make as much money in the future. As a result, people like Rosemary Townsend have seen their retirement savings shrink.
None of us alive at the moment have lived through anything like this. So I've lived through the 90s recession, the ups and downs of the various stock markets, but no one's ever seen anything like this.
But new exclusive analysis from Chantwest shows Australia's super funds have performed better than the share market. Shares here fell almost 30% over 2 months to the end of March. So-called balanced super funds fell by an average of 12%, while funds with less exposure to the share market fell by an average of just 6%, showing the benefits of not having all your eggs in one basket. The bigger hit to Rosemary's retirement cash flow is from property. She owns 2 investment apartments in inner city Sydney. Tenants in both apartments have seen their wages drop, and so Rosemary has reduced rent for both of them.
Both of them have been there for a few years. Clearly these are events completely outside their control. I negotiated with the agent and with the tenants, and we agreed to reduce their rent as well for by 30%. So that meant my income obviously has been reduced proportionally.
Back in Queensland, Samuel Clark says he will try to restore his super balance once the economy gets back to normal.
It's about having options right now, and having that money available will help us get through and survive it, so we can actually put the money back in.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.